Hello and welcome to this fleet composition workshop for Hearts of Iron Man the Guns. Now that 1.6.2 has been released, we've all had some time to gather some data and do some testing on the new ship mechanics. And I've been searching for the ideal fleet composition and see what happens when you throw all sorts of fleets against each other. And I want to share the results with you. So firstly I'm going to go into my test design, show you how I've actually done the tests in the game. Then I'll move on to some general observations, stuff I noticed during testing, what works, what doesn't work, how orders are picked up. And then we'll get into the results, what fleets destroy other fleets. And then we'll go on and see what areas of future research there are, which there are many. Alright, so all tests are done with a level 1 admiral. When I'm throwing fleets into one another without any scouting, they'll be on a patrol mission. They'll be on always engage and no repair. That's a key thing, so faster fleets don't really get the chance to retreat. There are no prize or fleets around to ruin the stats. All units are green, so no veteran units. And the fleets I've thrown into each other all had the same value of 102k dockyard production. So a dockyard produces, I think, 3 production every day, and this is equal to 23 docks producing for 4 years. Or you have a starting fleet, and then it also obviously adds production value, which is achievable for medium nations as well as obviously the bigger nations. If I had unclear results, I repeated the test a dozen or so times. Let me show you how I've done the tests in game. So here we have Denmark and Norway, and they have a lot of techs and they have a lot of fleets. And they've been fighting each other a lot in the Norwegian Sea and in the North Sea, and also here in the Norwegian coast. I've set it up in a way that I always make sure I disable the AI, and I also make sure I can actually declare war with one another. Yeah, so let's declare war on Norway. Here we go. My fleet is set to go into the Norwegian coast. On always engage, and it never repairs. Now, if we move over to Norway, here we are. They actually have a submarine fleet patrolling there, and if we run some time, we'll see that the fleets will start detecting one another, and eventually they will get into a fight. Here we are. They get into a fight, and this is actually the subfleet getting wrecked by a bunch of screens. Now, once they're done, I would record the losses on each side, and throw it into Excel, and eventually get me an average. Note it takes quite a long time for all the subs to be actually found and and killed. It takes like a few weeks. I think even all the destroyers which are left will pretty much be veteran or like be properly leveled up. So some general remarks of my findings. I made some minor mistakes of my own, where I accidentally created a few additional guns on a ship and threw it into another fleet, thinking I had the same fleets pitted against each other. And the one fleet with just a few additional guns would always win, and I would think I was doing something else wrong, but it basically means that minor differences really swing the balance of fleet power around, which is pretty cool. Having said that, even equal fleets do produce random results when facing each other, especially if you don't have a lot of screens. So if you're using a lot of capitals and throw them into each other, or like carrier task forces, which are not too big, then you get pretty random outcomes because there's a lot of crits going on. And Furthermore, speed is definitely key to get out of unwanted fights. Um, if you're playing a game in reality, you'll be using the speed of your fleet, and the fleet will get out of dodge in any bad situations. And last but definitely not least, the always engage and no repair buttons are there, but use them very wisely, because your fleet will just basically continue ramming into any other fleet. And if you get crit a few times, you may just lose your whole fleet, even if you were stronger to begin with. So be wary of using those options. Now on to the results. I tried to compile a small amount of the results. I basically have an Excel with all the results per battle. This is a short overview. So if I throw a carrier task force into one other carrier task force, it's a coin flip. I thought, well, let's throw in some light cruiser escorts and see if that actually helps out. But it doesn't. Basically means that you have to sacrifice some bigger screens or even a carrier to get all those escorts for the same cost of the fleet, and it basically allows the carrier task force to constantly wreck it. I'm using the same carrier task force as I presented in my prior video on fleet design. Now, even if adding a lot of screens, so destroyer screens, doesn't help at all. Actually, it's worse because destroyers are not doing much against anti-air. So yeah, basically, Air Force doesn't really care that much about all your screens. They're good because some of the aircraft will definitely go for the smaller ships, but your battle line and your carriers will get targeted, and they'll take each other down. Now, the fleet obviously there to destroy the carrier task force, consisting of 4 battleships and a bunch of destroyers as a screen, and a scout. Basically, always beats the carrier task force. They get in battle and they just shoot the carrier task force apart. Makes a lot of sense. But if the carrier task force is actually allowed to flee, it will definitely do so, because it's a faster one. I think these are heavy battleships. Now, another way to destroy the carrier task force is just to use subs. For 102k production, you can produce a whopping 125 subs, which will wreck the carrier task force, because the carrier task force doesn't have any screens. Now, if you throw just screens at the subs, so basically some destroyers and some heavy cruisers, they'll wreck the subs just easily. So you can use a way smaller force than this to defeat all those subs. So for all your sub-only proponents out there, it doesn't work. If you just know that someone is going for subs only, you have to fight the fleet only once. Then you can defeat them so easily. So don't buy that. Now, the subs also do very poorly against any, let's say, conventional fleet with a decent destroyer screen. Now, my my conclusions on the composition is I'm happy to say that there is no single solution. The game is actually good. The developers have thought about it. There is no one single unit you can make that wrecks another unit. As with the land units, it's all about knowing what your enemy has and then trying to rock paper scissors them, right? It's probably always good to have a destroyer screen in your fleets. It just saves you against subs, unless you somehow manage to kill the subs in another way. Yeah. So yeah, any information on your enemy's composition, and maybe in your design, actually think of how you can use how you can manipulate your total force to have different types of task forces. So if you actually have a few carriers or a carrier and a bunch of conventional units, maybe just with heavy cruisers, then at least you can vary your force around against depending on which enemy you're facing and where you're facing them. In terms of future research, there were a lot of excellent suggestions by you guys watching my videos, for which I'm very thankful. I was very much happily surprised, and that's the way I want to go about this in the future. I'm just gonna make a video on one of the topics you guys suggest, and then we can have a lively discussion on that topic. And I'll try to incorporate your ideas in a next video, and that's how we roll forward and become more knowledgeable on the game. Thank you very much for watching. See you guys next time. Bye bye.